Well, thanks very much. That's very kind. I haven't said anything yet, so maybe save the applause for the end. First of all, let me add my welcome. Welcome to Discover 2026. Good afternoon. My name's Craig Partridge, and I have the lucky enough role inside the company to speak to customers all over the world about how they're implementing their hybrid cloud strategy. And my goal in the next 20 minutes or so is to try and bring some of the conversations that we've had to the floor here at Discover, and hopefully ask you a couple of questions which might inform your own hybrid cloud strategy as well. So without further ado, let's get going. We always have our forward-looking statements slide. There are no forward-looking statements in this session, so you'll be rest safe. We're all good for the next 20 minutes. So let me kick off a little bit around the vision from HPE. Actually, last year at Discover, which is why I used last year's quote, we were already talking to you about how the world is complex and we need to solve for that complexity, and how the vision of things like agentic AI across that cloud infrastructure, those cloud platforms, is going to be part of the way that we're going to drive the discussions with our customers going forward. And hopefully, a year later, you're beginning to now see that come into all of the exhibits across the floor and some of the sessions that you're going to. But I wanted to focus on one of the key phrases in that quote, which is the word complexity. Because by far and away, customers are saying that it's the complexity of their hybrid cloud strategy which is holding back innovation and creating a barrier to scale. And maybe that's something that you all share, specifically actually managing hybrid cloud complexity. And I guess if you were to think about that in a little bit more detail, it's not because we can't make smart choices in how we think about the right kind of platforms and operating models and financial models to help us solve for hybrid cloud. It's because we never have a hybrid cloud strategy in isolation. We only ever deliver these platforms and these services in order to be able to run workloads at some kind of scale for the organization that we serve. And those workloads are constantly changing, ever changing. Workloads that drive engagement with people, those direct interactions, the digital translation of value between an organization and its people or its partners or its ecosystem. Systems of engagement are where we create value exchange between organizations. These can be a little bit unpredictable. They can change in terms of their demand on that hybrid cloud strategy based on the time of day, the time of the year, whether we're running campaigns. So they can be very difficult to predict. But not only systems of engagement, we're also being asked to deliver those core back-end systems at scale with high degrees of availability. These systems of record hold the digital source of truth inside organizations. If you're in manufacturing, think ERP. If you're in healthcare, think digital patient records. If you're in financial services, those transactional systems that really hold the core insights inside the organization. Availability and service delivery really counts. And then, of course, we can't escape it. Systems of intelligence have become the increasingly big focus for organizations in how they adapt their hybrid cloud strategy to be able to deliver AI factories at scale. And systems of intelligence aren't isolated, even though the slide suggests it is. It's also increasingly shifting how systems of engagement operate and are architected, and how systems of record are architected and delivered. So huge amounts of complexity driven by the demand of ever-changing workloads across the landscape that hybrid cloud needs to deliver on. And that forces some really, really fundamental questions for IT. The first, I suppose, is obvious, which is, okay, what are the platform choices that I'm going to make that are going to underpin these workloads at scale? Am I going to deliver public cloud, private cloud? Is it going to be a mix? Is it going to be on-prem? Is it going to be in colo? Is it going to be at my edges as I increasingly need to drive systems of intelligence and inferencing more local to the data sources that are creating those insights? So there's a huge plethora of platform choices that customers need to make, and I deliberately use the word platforms plural because it turns out that every customer I speak to are running multiple platforms in their environment. Interesting inflection point happened a year or two ago with the Barclays CIO survey, where CIOs were saying they're now looking to repatriate back from public to private. And I have to assume that a lot of that stimulus was around the increasing value of data, and where that data lives matters, not least of all geopolitical tensions and all of the other things that are happening in the world that really raise the bar on conversations like sovereignty for your platform choices. And then, of course, it's no good just having platforms. We need to deliver those platforms into the organization at scale as well. So we need to do that platform engineering work, that cloudification work. How do we not just have a platform, but we enable self-service for our developing community, for our lines of business, so that they can consume those platform services on demand as well. It requires real discipline, real skills, real capability to be able to bring these platforms to life at scale. And so what I was posing to the customer conversations I was having around the world was really, if you were to say, whatever the workload, systems of engagement, systems of record, systems of intelligence, if you could boil it down to just two key questions for each workload, would it help us to create a model, a framework for your hybrid cloud strategy? And would that help us to unlock some of the constraints that complexity imposes in our hybrid clouds? Well, the two questions that I want to pose to each of you when you have maybe the top 3 or 4 or 5 workloads in your mind for your organization would be, for that workload, do you want to build the operations, the operating capability inside your organization to support that workload at scale? That's one key vector in this model. And the second key question is, do you want to be in charge of designing the architectural components of that platform as well? So do you want to build the platform, and do you want to build the operations? For any workload, it's pretty interesting to think about the world through these two lenses. And when you do, you can end up with a very simple 2x2 grid, or what we call the implication matrix for hybrid cloud. And inside that, there are 4 quadrants. And each quadrant is pretty interesting because it has a unique set of capabilities and a unique operating environment. In the bottom left-hand corner, many customers, and I've had a number of them on the floor already this week, sit in what we would call the artisan quadrant. They're deploying workloads into this quadrant because they want to be in complete control of all of the technical aspects that make up the platform that underpin the workload, and they want to be in complete control of how they operate that platform at scale. Very good reasons to be deploying workloads into this artisan quadrant. And really why customers are doing it is because they believe there's a necessary best-of-breed choice that they need to make to support their platform at scale. Some customers are pushing north, still retaining architectural control, so still making that decision around the right kind of technical components, but starting to offload that operational burden to partners in their ecosystem that can operate it more efficiently and more effectively at scale for them. So starting to focus on splitting out the responsibility between architectural choices and operational choices. Many customers are looking to shift right in this framework, so deploying workloads into platforms that they didn't necessarily architect themselves. So they look to partners to be able to deliver platforms that deliver the service experience they're after at scale. However, they still want to retain operational control of the environment as they go forward. So it's an in-house operating capability, but it's a partner that's delivering the platform that underpins that workload. And then to complete the quadrant, of course, there are customers that are looking to partners to not only architect and build the underlying platform, but also to operate it at scale on their behalf as well. What that quadrant allows organizations to do is to start putting their resources into delivering great service experiences rather than having to worry about all of the technical components that go to make this up. Is this making sense so far? So within any customer environment I walk into, certainly large customers, and the average enterprise has about 650 applications. In the top 10%, organizations are running around 3,500 applications. So if you started to map out the workloads and the applications you run inside your landscape against these 4 quadrants, the question would be, are those workloads landing in those environments intentionally, or are they there historically, or are they there by accident? And what's the intent moving forward to start unlocking complexity? So let me deal with the complexity. As you probably guessed, the most complex quadrant here is to be down in the bottom left-hand corner, is to want to retain architectural control of the platform and to retain the operations capability behind it as well. So why is that complex? Well, because at a high level, you're having to make decisions around compute, around storage, around networking, around software. You're having to stitch all of those fabrics together, and you're having to create a complete operating environment. And the truth is that depends on what the workload is, will shift and change the decisions that you make inside each of those silos. So if we took systems of intelligence, let's say emerging AI workloads, we might be looking at something like the X10K. You heard this morning, built-in support for MCP, metadata support, help build data pipelines at scale. Fantastic file and object storage platform, but now I need to couple it with some compute. Maybe I just want some inferencing compute. I'm looking at something like the DL380, which gives me some GPU-optimized compute. This is more for inferencing, but maybe this workload needs model training capabilities, and so I need to move up into something like the XD685, liquid-cooled compute. We're at the high end of high-performance compute now. And now I need a network that's going to match the kind of performance I need from the compute side. And so things like the 5250 start making sense because I've got water-cooled networking switches. I've got huge amounts of east-west traffic capacity, very low latency networks designed for AI. And now I'm having to plug in the software as well. Things like Abstra. Oh, but hang on a minute. Now maybe I need to actually do the platform engineering piece and present these resources back to the organization. Now I need to make platform choices of software, things like Morpheus, which can aggregate those resources and present them back as a service to the organization. That's just for systems of intelligence. If you're in Artisan and you're trying to solve for things like traditional workloads, systems of record, storage changes, maybe it's now more of a block conversation, B10K with its 100% data availability, because these are systems of record. They're mission critical. Now I'm moving over in traditional compute, 380s, into top-of-rack switches, which again look different to what I would deploy if I was looking at AI workloads. Now I need observability into all of this environment, as well as abstraction and provisioning. And now I need resilience in the environment as well. I'm having to think about how I back up and recover. My point is, Artisan is appropriate, and if you find yourself in that quadrant, you're doing it for the right reasons, but it's complex. And every time someone in each of those towers makes a different technical decision over the years, what you gather is technical debt, and what you gather is a lack of integration and coherency across those landscapes. So how do we solve for complexity? Well, one of the ways of doing it is to start shifting north. If you still want to retain architectural control of all of those components, start thinking about placing workloads up here in the orchestrator quadrant. Here, things like managed services make extremely important steps in solving for the complexity challenge, because it's the operator at scale, your partner, which is going to be managing and taking on some of that heavy lifting and burden inside operating that platform at scale. So one of the ways to unlock your hybrid cloud strategy is to think about, if you want to retain architectural control, how do I move north and think about offloading some of those things that don't add a lot of value, but my service partner can add value to my team as well. Ultimately, the world gets much simpler the more to the right that you shift. Because if you shift over to operator, you're now not making architectural choices. You're looking for predefined, pre-engineered, pre-integrated platforms that deliver against the workloads that you need to run at scale. Something like Private Cloud AI, which is a turnkey platform, we've already done the engineering work with NVIDIA to bring that platform to life. That's something you don't have to undertake from an architectural perspective, but maybe you want to operate it in your environment, bringing inferencing at scale and bringing the models to the data rather than having to ship the data out to the models. For traditional workloads like systems of engagement, systems of record, this is where platforms like HP's Private Cloud PC 1000, for our hyperconverged, maybe it's more of an edge solution, or back in the core, Private Cloud PC 3000 for that disaggregated version, make real sense. Again, we've done the engineering work, not just at the hardware level, but bring in the software level, embedding capability like VME to give you virtualization alternatives in your environment. And of course, we connect those environments into that GreenLake platform, giving you access to things like FinOps and sustainability insights, and being able to do role-based access control. So some of the key capabilities that you need from a platform already provisioned into the solution for you. And of course, with a single click, if you were here a little bit earlier, you can move up to Morpheus Enterprise software and really start to solve for that full hybrid cloud challenge that you have inside the organization as well. So things already start to feel a bit more simple as you move to the right, because you're taking the architectural burden off your shoulders and giving it to companies and organizations like HPE. All we do is engineer these systems at scale. And then finally, up into Accelerator. Here, you're passing not only the technical control and architectural decisions to a partner, but also the operations as well. And so here again, private cloud AI plays, but this time, add the managed services layer to it, and now you have an inferencing engine at scale in production in a very turnkey way, which is not only designed by us, but operated by us as well. And this really reduces the complexity and the friction inside that hybrid cloud strategy. And for traditional workloads, VMs, containers, then start to think about private cloud PC 7000, again, built by HPE, operated by HPE on your behalf, and you can start to focus on delivering that back as a service inside your organization. So where you place workloads has a big say on the complexity challenges you have within hybrid cloud. And I challenge you to all think about those two questions and think about where your workloads sit in your own organization, and to think about whether the intent behind where they sit today is still the intent for where they should be sitting in the future. The truth, though, is that organizations at any kind of scale are operating workloads in all four of these quadrants simultaneously. And that's what makes hybrid challenging. Unlikely that 100% of your workloads will all sit in one of those operating environments. Mostly we have different types of workloads that need different kind of service treatment, different kinds of service levels, different kind of architectural needs. And so the reality of hybrid is that all four of these quadrants are valid and in operation at the same time. So how do we solve for the complexity challenge here? Well, my encouragement to all of you would be, from an IT perspective, think about engineering a consistent operating model so that no matter which workload appears in which quadrant, you have the same capability to both observe it, to be able to automate and orchestrate for it, and to protect it. And so that intelligent hybrid operations message is really the key to solving some of that complexity constraint. It means embracing AI ops at scale, something that I'm sure everybody is doing as fast as they can. It gives that extra capacity into your operations team, gives you visibility and insights into how the environment's working. So AI ops is clearly part of the jigsaw, and that's where GreenLake Intelligence really begins to shine. But also, if we're going to have a consistent operating model, let's treat those workloads equally in terms of security and cyber resilience as well, so that if there is an event in any of those operating quadrants, we can recover from that event extremely quickly. Most organizations admit to making some pretty risky decisions as they deploy workloads in a relatively unplanned manner across those four quadrants. And so I hope that makes sense in terms of why HPE brought CloudOps software suite to the market, because it brings together the ability to do the provisioning and the orchestration, not just on-premise with private clouds, but across a public and private environment. It gives the observability and the ability to reduce noise in your environment through OpsRamp. And with Zerto gives you the ability to create that resilience in the architecture to recover from a cyber event in your organization. So we really think that CloudOps is underpinning that simplified operating model for IT going forward. And I do have 20 seconds left, so timing-wise, perfect. But that brings me back to the opening slide that I started with, which is how do we unlock your hybrid cloud strategy? Well, it starts with dealing with complexity. And that complexity, we hope in the future, will be more agentically solved. And so welcome to GreenLake Intelligence, which is our vision for how we'll help you ultimately scale that operating model to even more simplicity inside the organization. That was my 20 minutes of unlocking your hybrid cloud strategy. There are a few things that I would recommend you do next. If you want to have a chat with me or any of my team, we're over at Demo 402 in the cloud neighborhood. Happy to take the conversation further. I'm also running some live polling at the Meet the Experts session tomorrow. There's a theater just down the hall here where I'll be at 2 o'clock on Wednesday. And if you haven't already, go book a session with our digital transformation advisors in the corner. But if you want to get hold of me, please, Demo 402 is where you can do it. Your feedback really matters, team. It's how we improve Discover year after year. So please take the time with these 20 minutes to feedback on the event through the app. So I think your app is the vehicle to get the feedback in. And with that, I hope you have a very, very good Discover. And try and keep that framework in mind as you ask all of the experts here how they solve for your different environments. So with that, thank you very much.